Greetings. I'm Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine, and welcome to another one of our highly attended sponsored E&P Reports webinars. And this one, of course, is sponsored by Column. Before we get to it, quick housekeeping. There is many ways to communicate on chat, one of which is us. We're going to be live speaking with you. You can't do that because we'll have well over 100 attending, just close to 200 registered. It would be hard to have everybody in there chatting away. So you will be chatting virtually. I know there's other buttons below you. There's a raise your hand button. I don't know what that does. I want you to go to chat and do me a favor. For this next hour of dialogue, Zoom, for some reason, defaults chat to panelist only. Do not do that. Use the pull down and chat to the entire group. You may have a comment. You may disagree. You may have a question that others within this forum could answer. I'd like to keep it open and have a separate dialogue going on there as you participate in this E&P webinar. So let's get started. Public notice used to be one of the most predictable parts of a publisher's business. It was stable, it was consistent, and darn it, frankly, it was automatic. It didn't demand a lot of attention. Those days are no longer here. Today, public notice is sitting at the center of a perfect storm. Regulatory scrutiny is increasing, digital mandates are accelerating, and governments, and we all know this, are exploring ways to move notices away from news publishers entirely, and many of you are being asked to adapt without the additional resources necessary, without new staff, and without a clear roadmap. And yet, here's the paradox. At the very moment public notice feels most uncertain, it may also be one of the most important and protectable revenue streams left in local media today. Not just as a line item, but as a reflection of our role also in civic accountability and public trust. So the question isn't whether public notice is changing. We all know it is. The question is, who is going to define what it becomes next? And that's today's conversation. It's not theoretical. Today, we're not going to have policy. We're going to be well-grounded. That is my goal as your moderator today. We're going to figure this whole thing out, and we're going to talk about what's changing, what's working, and are there real opportunities for us to share? Joining me today is Megan. Now, Megan, I'm going to try to get your last name dead on. Give it to me one more time, Megan.
Villanueva. I know, it's a tough one.
No, it's okay. Megan Villanueva. Megan, I'm honored to have you on the program. Full disclosure, Column has been a longtime supporter of E&P as a marketing partner, but we've always dealt mostly with your predecessor. Congratulations, you're the new CEO of Column. This is your first major industry appearance. I'm sure you'll be on many, many stages after this. So first of all, before we get into the details and the real meat of today's content, I'd like to talk to you about this leadership change. Everybody saw Jake Seaton. If those of you did not see Jake, he was on a lot of stages. His family has ink in his veins. That newspaper company in Kansas that he grew up through was a customer of mine way back in my consulting days. Now he's moved into a board role and you've stepped into CEO. Give us an idea why this change, where we're at, and what's going on, please.
Yes. Yeah. Jake founded Column back in Little Manhattan in Kansas. So first off, Jake, Leo, who is the former CTO, and Kevin, who was our former head of marketing, they were part of the founding team. So as you mentioned, Jake now serves as the executive chairman of the board. So he's definitely part of Column supporting our business strategy. And they have done an incredible job building the company into what it is today, right? We're now operating at a national scale. We're the largest processor of public notice in the US, but it takes a very different skill set to take a company from zero to where it is today. And then a different skill set altogether to then lead it into its next chapter. So I know many of the registrants here on the webinar are senior leaders. So you all know that companies naturally go through multiple evolutions, responding to different market changes or different constraints. But then there's also a time, in someone's personal life when it's right to transition to something new, because 7 years focusing on the same mission, and working just incredibly hard to build the company into what it is today is not easy. So I'm incredibly grateful for the work the original leadership team has done, but I'm also incredibly excited about the team that we have today. So the new era of leadership, they're part of Column's early days. So part of the folks that were responsible for implementing a lot of our long-term partners like WIC, Ogden, SENG. So they carry that deep institutional context, and I think most importantly, those strong relationships with our publishers, which really positions us well to lead Column into this next chapter.
Okay, well, who the heck are you? I mean, I
I
know
know.
who you are because
I just came from nowhere.
I've already trolled you on the internet and checked your LinkedIn profile, and I went to AI, and you're pretty well known. But why don't you explain to the audience who hasn't done all that due diligence,
Oh,
your background, and
man.
how do you fit into the news media ecosystem today?
Yes, definitely a fair question. So actually, I earlier in my career, I started out as a fact checker for an international, journalism nonprofit. They trained and employed women journalists around the world. So this thread of access to comprehensive, accurate information has been, a common thread through my career. So from that, journalism nonprofit, transitioned over to social impact at Ashoka, and then transitioned over into product. Ironically enough, I grew up in the Bay Area, but I broke into tech when I was living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So a little odd, but once I was in technology. A few years later, the opportunity to work at Column presented itself. So I thought it was a beautiful combination of my background. And then I started out on the product team at Column, and over 4 years worked my way up to VP of product and then CEO. So how I see my role now is really building upon the foundation that Jake has set, and really focusing on building Column into the technical infrastructure that supports public notice in the US, and really ensuring publishers are equipped to navigate the changes that you referenced at the beginning.
One of the things Colin was very publicized for. I mean, the first time I had Jake on my regular vodcast series, we're talking years ago, was when he
Yeah,
sat in the gallery at the Florida legislature. I mean, because
yeah,
he was there to testify on
yeah,
certain issues. So Column's always been at the forefront of these legislative conversations, at least the way we see it at ENP. And we turn to you many times when we do reporting on that. We turn to your
yeah,
people for quotes because you keep your ear to the ground. How should
yeah,
publishers understand your role when it comes to legislation and policy discussions now? Are you still in
yeah.
the game? Are you still part of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really, our role is to provide information to publishers, press associations, lobbyists, and municipalities that solutions already exist to address the challenges that a lot of this legislation is trying to drive, right? So if you're looking at legislation that's being introduced, it's framed around goals like saving time, reducing costs, making the process overall just much easier. The thing is, Column can actually help people achieve this already. So let's take speed, for example. So we can deliver a notarized compliant affidavit to an advertiser within 4 business days. And I want to stress that our affidavit is the most compliant out there in the market, because we require publishers to send us e-editions. So we're ensuring that our system is essentially making sure that notice text is included in the correct publication date. So if you have notice types like an LLC that needs to run 6 consecutive weeks, when you get an affidavit from us, yes, that did run exactly for that amount of time. So in terms of transparency or ease of use, you're aware we have our self-serve platform. It really allows advertisers to view their proofs immediately, within the specs of the paper already, since we take their IDML template. They have access to invoices. If a paper has auto invoicing enabled, they can, see the exact cost right then and there. And then they can see the status of their notice. So, and access their affidavit, in perpetuity. So because all of that is easily accessible to the advertiser, that means that a legal's rep doesn't have to take the time to field phone calls or, emails trying to provide those updates. But I think one thing we can do a better job of is communicating that publishers are already modernizing by offering these solutions to their customers and to their counties. So Arizona is a great example of how we're working with a press association there to help empower their arguments. So Arizona introduced a bill earlier this year, SB 1027, which allows government entities to publish notices primarily on the official website. And there's still some newspaper notification requirements, but our goal really was to, provide this PDF, this presentation that includes both quantitative and qualitative data. So, for example, Column has been in Arizona for 5 years. We, approximately about 85% of government notices in our system are self-serve, which is just an incredibly high adoption rate. And we have 360 or so recurring Arizona government users. So I guess the message that we want to articulate is there's no need to waste taxpayer dollars on developing an efficient solution for public notice, because publishers are already offering one to their customers.
All right. So you guys operate at a pretty large scale. As a matter of fact, I asked for you guys to supply me an image, and let me put one up for you.
Yeah.
You guys are everywhere right now. And this was fascinating to watch over the years. Because again, remember, we were tied to Column in a lot of ways. You were a marketing partner, where you were also a go-to, especially helping us coordinate what was going on. I'm sure you get insights into what's going on with public notice across the country, because for all the publishers and organizations you work with, what are the biggest shifts you're seeing now? It's not the same as it was a few years ago, right? This is a moving target. Do I have that right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the biggest shifts I'm seeing, which again is not a surprise to publishers on this call who have to engage in these legislative battles year over year, is just this continued push to modernize and cut costs. So, as described, right, the general theme is the solution to move notices onto government websites. So people have closely watched what happened in Florida with the passing of HB 7049, which allowed local governments to post notices on county-operated websites. And then last year, we saw in Jersey, Bill 4654 passed, which is actually effective next month, that requires that most legal notices be posted online. And so the concerning part to me is that, from the surface, you see these two bills and you're like, okay, they're very similar. But in Florida, the law still requires affidavits to be generated and for counties to take on a lot of the public notice requirements that publishers have to follow, whereas the one in Jersey is completely bare bones, right? That is just post a notice on a government website, call it a day. There's no affidavit, so there's really no accountability on the government entity to say that it's like, oh, this was visible to the public for X amount of days, and so measures like that don't truly meet the goal of public notice, right? At the beginning of this webinar, Mike, you were talking about, transparency. That misses the ball completely, misses the point, right? So it's like public notices, especially when it's related to, the comings and goings of government. That's the whole point of why publishers are responsible for making that available to the public, right? Holding power to account, ensuring that there's transparency about what's going on in their community. I personally don't go to a government website to understand what's happening in my community. I go there to pay utilities and I go there to pay property taxes. So a couple of other shifts I'm seeing is the entrance of digital-only publications trying to meet these new public notice requirements, as a result of, adjudication laws changing, but also with increasing news deserts. So according to, I believe, Medill's 2025 local news report, there's about 212 U.S. counties with 0 locally based news sources. And so you have these digital-only publications, coming up. And then the second driver too are legislative changes, as I mentioned, like the ones in Virginia in 2024 that was passed. It was HB 264 and then SB 157, and then last year in Texas, Bill SB 1062. which approve the publication of legal notices in online news sites. And then the third shift I'm seeing are actually legislation that removes notice types altogether from public notice. So in New York, we have this was introduced, I believe, last year, but included in this year's session. Is in New York, you have A03546, which removes the requirement of publishing LLC notices in newspapers, and then instead requires a $50 fee to post it on the Department of State's website. So we have an amazing partnership with NYPA. It's been a blast working with Bryce, frankly. And we have over 80 plus papers in New York that rely on these LLCs as a revenue category for public notice. And then in New Hampshire, we have HB 1181 that's in session, and this is related to public hearing requirements for zoning boards. So now, this is in session, hasn't been signed into law yet, can be posted. So these zoning board notices can be posted on the municipality's website for at least 5 days instead of being placed in a newspaper. So all in all, yeah.
And anyone could be next. Is what,
Exactly.
No matter where you are, what your market is, where you are, your county,
it's popping up everywhere.
So you got a way for people to stay in touch, right? I mean, you
yes.
guys actually help the industry. I mean, we get your press releases. You're keeping an ear to the ground in a lot of these places, correct?
Right, exactly. And we really want to be an ally and to our partners to help them navigate these changes. And really reproduce what we're doing with AMA and providing this context to help augment their case.
So scan this QR code if you want. This is not to get sold anything. This is so
Yeah,
you can
it's
get
just
in your
awareness.
inbox. And this is important information because every now and then, correct me if I'm wrong, a state association may want to put up what I used to call, remember, I was a state president years ago. I used to call, put up the bat signal. In other words, get everybody to start, emailing or phoning. And this is, you could like help set the table for that. Let everybody knows what's going on. So please, let me put that back up. I took it down too early. I know you get a lot in your inbox out there, but this is good stuff because then you can stay on top of this. Remember, it's not just about revenue. I know it is. And I'm not an idiot. I get it. Top line is everything to me too. But it's also about accountability. I mean, I'm going to do may I editorialize? It's my damn.
Oh, please go.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the reason that I believe this whole idea of a public notice was set up is people think twice when they think someone's going to have to scan it or see it. And God forbid it's a news, he said sarcastically, it's a news operation. So then it just keeps people knowing that what's going through the system has been looked at by a pair of caring eyes. So this is how we defend this as well as help sustain local news publishing. And thank you again for putting up Penny Abernathy's map from Medill. She's the one, you may never have met, but she's retired now. She's been on my show. And I think the first time she said the word news desert was years ago. So anyway, but let's go on. You mentioned Florida. I lived there for 2 decades. Question we hear a lot is what happened in Florida and why did Column start working with the individual counties there? You really got into the weeds in Florida. Give us the history there, if you don't mind.
Yes. No, not at all. We get this question a lot. So, while Column opposed the legislation, SB 7049, once it became law in January of 2023, that was a moment we had to take a step back and really reassess our role in that market. And, you called out that, Jake was testifying, against this bill. So as a publisher first company, we recognized how much this would impact publisher revenue. So when the law passed, counties began reaching out to us. And then our approach was to contact the publisher first in each affected county to explore a revenue share. And then at the time, the only publisher that chose to participate was News Media. So I understand that some publishers viewed our decision to make our products and services available to counties as a betrayal. But I want to be absolutely clear, from the beginning, we reached out to publishers and prioritized a model that included them. So this happened several years ago, 2023, 3 years ago. And just recently, 2 weeks ago, when another county had contacted us, we again reached out to the publisher in that county with the goal of building that partnership anchored in cooperation. So what happened in Florida was ultimately a reflection of, excuse me, column adapting to market changes. Very much like publishers themselves have to adapt and evolve and innovate in response to just shifting conditions. So, for example, when I was at the Senior Leadership Conference last November in gorgeous Colorado Springs, I was listening to publishers experimenting with, AI to increase internal capacity or introducing new pricing tactics to drive digital subscriptions. So, at the time, we asked ourselves, like, how do we continue our mission of improving improving how the public is informed just through better software? So supporting access to public information remains central to that decision. So what's been encouraging actually as a result of this is we've been able to work with like-minded partners such as DR Media, David there. And so what we've done is, pursue a solution really grounded in cooperation rather than, a zero sum, all or nothing mindset here. So I don't know. I personally think when we fall into that mentality, we often miss the nuance. We often miss the opportunities that can really create value that drive, value across the public notice ecosystem.
And I remember
So
we chatted with David Dunrankin, and
yes,
this was an important. This is a case study worth reading. We've actually ended up taking some of this and publishing it. This is something I encourage. There's a QR code on the screen. Maybe. Oh, by the way, the chat room is lively. Remember to respond to everyone. We got from your team. I think we got Emmy in there and Enrique.
Yeah, Emmy's in there and Enrique. Yeah,
so they'll give you a link. Emmy, if you're hearing me, put a link up to this in case someone doesn't know how to scan. But this is a good. Go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Megan.
Oh no, please. Yeah, that's totally fine. No, I like the back and forth. It's lovely. So the gist of the partnership is essentially DR Media and Column. We launched a county branded white label notice site for Polk County. So Polk County is one of the counties that we're working with through DR Media. And this allowed them to really deliver the digital experience that the county wanted while preserving newspaper publication, right? So DR Media was able to retain its public notice revenue despite the law change. So, in this type of legislation, right, I mentioned with HB 7049, if a county were to, choose to place notices on their site, they'd also have to inherit the work of managing the notice themselves, which is, most clerks don't want to add new, admin burden to their plate. So providing this structure was really beneficial for all parties involved. And we know, publishers are the experts in their customer relationships. And I just want to reiterate, Column's role is to provide the technology that helps publishers meet evolving customer expectations.
Again, I wanted to put up this.
Yeah, there's the site.
I love what you said. I mean, the only time I ever go to a county website is to pay my taxes.
Is that not true?
No, but it's true. And when you see these legislatures and we report on it, they scream, the internet thing is there. We'll just put it on our site and everyone, it's like a billboard in your basement.
Right.
I mean, the most boring, useless sites are usually the city sites, the county sites. It's ridiculous. So, okay, well, let's get back to let's come down 50,000 feet if we could and get to the real question here, the elephant in the room. There's a lot of people.
The elephant in the room.
There's an elephant in this room. At least I see it because I'm an old guy and I've been in this industry. I started this industry by putting one of the first newspapers online, and I went to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of media companies around the world teaching them what the internet was. And I watched the evolution of this. There was an era when we were trying to seize verticals. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I mean, you're too young to even know. This was like pre-Craigslist, where we worked with vendors to start verticals like cars.com.
Yeah.
What happened was it's hard to work with this industry. Please, you can tweet. I'm sorry. So some of these vendors started taking things on their own and starting to, put up sites that, go directly to the public. Thus, some people fear you.
Yes.
If we support you and bring you in as our face for this very necessary part, A, of our democracy, B, of our revenue stream, are you a competitor to us? Will you end up just saying, the heck with we'll just build one master site, we'll do everything on our own? Can you just assuage some of those fears? And I hear them sometimes
Yes.
when people just get
Yes.
scared. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for asking this question. It's a great one. And it's, yeah, like you said, one of the most common objections we hear. And the thing is, the underlying assumption here is inaccurate. So we cannot be a competitor. We cannot take a publisher's customer, because we are not responsible for the core function of public notice, which is publishing the notice itself, right? Our role, again, is to serve as that technical infrastructure, that connective tissue that supports adjudicated publishers in the process of public notice. So really, when it comes to what our focus is, it's helping publishers deliver an exceptional experience to their customers. It's very central to what we do. So it's just not possible for Column to take our publishers' customers. We have the same goal, really providing a great customer experience for advertisers. We will hear it here. I have no intention of being the party responsible for placing and publishing notices ourselves. That is not our strength. What we have is a public notice platform, really, that simplifies complex workflows, right? Crazy affidavit requirements across the country. And our niche is really connecting legacy systems to modern infrastructure, and making public information easier to publish, access, and verify. I remember really the early days in Column was really trying to integrate with old systems, and it's like, okay, how do we do this? Because we were doing just public notice at the time, and papers had to deal with like obits, classifieds, all kinds of other different ad categories, and so our team worked incredibly hard to figure out, okay, how do we make this work for publishers, just so it's easier to process. So again, our strength is building the products and services that make the process easier and more efficient for everyone involved.
And in today's world, I mean, I've always, one of the first pieces of advice I got as a young pup when I started managing my first radio station from a mentor was that if you want success, find out what they want and give it to them. I mean,
Yes.
that's,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and then we're so busy inside our own ecosystems that we forget that out there, the world has changed. There are people now
Yes.
very technical. There are people who demand instant ability to get these things up because they're trying to get their job done, whether they're a county clerk, a lawyer, whatever.
Yeah.
It could be a divorce lawyer in a small community. It doesn't matter. You got to provide the technology today, or it's going to, if it ain't easy, they're going to fight you. And that's one of the
Right.
things I love. Now, let's get some good news out. Despite all this change, we're seeing some publishers protect and grow
Yes.
this revenue, right? I want to,
Definitely.
we're halfway through our journey, everyone. Please get into the chat room. But I demanded this section because I'm a big believer in case studies. Show me the money, show me the success. So you got some good
Yes.
ones here you want to share with us. Am I right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And Emmy will share the case studies in the chat. But before we dive in, I want to take a note that public notice is fundamentally different from other ad categories like classifieds or obituaries, right? Public notice advertisers are legally required to publish this content, and these notices must run in specific counties. So the dynamic is very different from a traditional sales cycle where publishers, can cultivate relationships, generate more demand, generate more revenue. So the examples that we're seeing is publishers improving ROI around their public notice operations and then being able to invest those savings in new revenue channels. So first example, Amsterdam News. They're a small paper in New York that was handling public notice manually. So a similar story that I'm sure smaller publishers experience was their staff was overworked. They were overburdened. And so when they adopted Column, they opened up self-serve immediately. And they saw a meaningful increase in self-serve adoption over just a few months. So I just looked at our report, and right now their self-serve rate is 87%. And I actually couldn't believe this. I had Enrique double check, but 100% of their government notices are self-serve. That's wild to me. So as a
And I think a lot of people know these guys. I mean, we're
yeah.
constantly reporting on Amsterdam News. This is a heritage paper with,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how they're able to adapt, and even though it's got this 150-year-old, almost 200-year-old history, that it looks at the world in these ways. This is
Yes,
great.
definitely. Yeah. So as a result, they, reduce the work on an already stretched team. And then something to note is in their previous system, the paper had been collecting only about 30 to 40% of legal revenue because of just a growing accounts receivable. And so with Column, they realized close to 100% of every dollar sold on legals. Because of a combination of payments features that we have. So they have payment alerts for their reps. When someone pays, they get an email. They have payment reminders. So for overdue invoices, those just automatically go out. And then they set up required prepayment on particular notice types, and they also set it on specific customers who are just known to, not not pay their bills on time. And so the combination of those features really helped triple their legals collection year over year, and then kept their AR backlog manageable, which I know can be a behemoth to deal with.
And now my favorite, not my favorite, they're all good, but CherryRoad.
Yes,
And I wanted to let you know Lee Batchlet, the COO, is in the chat room. I mean,
Lee.
and I'm going to bring him in. Is that okay? Because
Yeah, please.
Lee and I were emailing about other stuff because they're a marketing partner of ours. They also, full disclosure, they print me too. But let me see if I can get him up to see if I'm good enough. Lee, are you there? I'm giving you attendee
Giving him the power.
panelist. You got the power now, Lee. Come join the conversation if you can, sir. And tell us a little bit while we're at least figuring it out. Megan, tell us about this and your side of it, okay?
Yes, of course. Good to see you, Lee. So yeah, CherryRoad partnered with us back in 2022. Last year, they came to us and said, "Hey, we need to be more efficient in how we operationalize this revenue. How can you help?" And so then, by working with us, we came together and we were able to outsource, the operational complexity of public notice. And Lee, as you put it, you all got better at handling legals by not handling legals. But I'll let you share a little bit more.
First of all, I got to say, Mike, Villanueva is not that hard a name. Not that hard.
Thank you, Lee. Thank
It's
you.
an easy name. Blinder. Everybody calls me Blinder. It's Blinder. Okay, no, but go ahead. Yeah.
No, so people want to read the case study I did with Megan's folks. Please go ahead. But CherryRoad works hard at understanding what we do well and what we don't do well, and finding partners to help us with what we don't do well. And when we're working in 19 states across the country and trying to understand the machinations that guide legals and particularly affidavits across all of those states, it's very complicated. And my quote that Megan just shared is absolutely what I would stand by. We got better at legals by not doing them. And I saw some comments in the chat about about Column making money off of newspapers. I don't pay Column a penny, and they handle my legals for over 100 papers. The people who are placed in the legals pay Column for the work they do for us. And by outsourcing with them, I was actually able to take an entire team of people and reallocate them where I needed them, where those resources were necessary. And again, it doesn't cost me a penny. It costs the people that are placed in the legals the money. And I still get everything I got from those legals. And I've taken a whole group of people and put them in places I need them. And so if you can't tell, I'm pretty passionate about our partnership with Megan and her team. And they've made a difference in our business. They have, no question.
I'm beaming. Thank you.
Well, I wouldn't say if it wasn't true, but it's true.
Which is kind of neat. Is CherryRoad,
and we continue to partner with them. I continue to bring people I'm working with in shared services to the table. They do the same for us. I mean, we've got a good partnership, and we're helping each other be successful.
I mean, CherryRoad, I was going to say, Lee is focusing mostly on a service that many people are picking up called shared services, where you can focus on just sales and reporting, and leave some of the technology and and other tools. But darn it, if you're going, I mean, that's quite a, in my opinion, that's quite a quite an endorsement for you guys to say, okay, these
Yeah.
guys know what they're doing. We'll work with them. All right. Well, did you want to move on, Megan? We're getting short on time. So please get,
Yeah.
Lee, thanks for the input.
Thank you so much, Lee.
Should I
Thanks,
move
Megan.
on to talk about your great new announcement?
Yeah.
Is it time to do that?
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
that'd be
Sure.
excellent. So here, this is what I wanted to ask you about, and we're pretty excited that you let us amplify this message to the industry. Your announcement about automated placement is a way of support newspapers and the customers. What are you solving when you do this? In other words, what technology are you bringing in that you believed was missing that is necessary for us to A, sustain this revenue, and B, keep this going? So tell me about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very excited about this launch. So just a little bit more context. So over the last several years, advertisers have primarily used our self-serve platform, right? And so if you're an advertiser placing 1 or 2 notices a month, that's fine, right? But if you're a high volume advertiser, so if you're placing 50 or more notices month over month, it becomes very inefficient and frankly frustrating, clicking through the same workflow. So that's really the primary challenge we set out to address, is that negative experience for high volume notice placers. So again, staying true to being customer obsessed, we heard this consistent feedback that the existing process just didn't scale for those types of users. So the automated placement, it really allows advertisers to submit notices either through an API or through email, without requiring them to go through, our traditional user interface, that self-serve platform. And the key benefit that we're trying to optimize for here is minimal change to the advertiser behavior, right? Like adoption, increases when they don't have to do too many things that are new. So if an advertiser is accustomed to submitting notices via email, they can continue to do so. If they have technical resources on their team, they can integrate via API and can send notices programmatically. So from an ecosystem perspective, right, this is driving consistent high volume notice flow to our publishing partners. And then on the advertising side, it's improving the efficiency for them because they're not having to deal with manually uploading. They're able to centralize their workflow, right? These high volume advertisers, we're managing notices through an Excel spreadsheet with about five FTEs. And so everything just becomes visible, becomes trackable within their column account, or it just becomes deliverable, whether that's the invoice, the affidavit, the proof, through that chosen submission method, API or email. And so one example of this in practice is actually a partnership with Ravena News-Herald and registered agents, their customer. So the paper approached us because registered agents was frustrated with submitting LLC notices to 2 separate systems. So they were submitting one, the LLC to Ravena for the weekly, and then another system submitting the LLC to Daily Gazette for the daily. And so Ravena asked, hey, could you build an API to simplify their customers, to simplify registered agents' workflow? With really, again, that goal of securing revenue and growing public notice volume. So we were excited to support that, right? It was a clear win for Ravena, it was a clear win for registered agents, and it was a clear win for us. So the outcome of that work really just ties in back to your earlier question, Mike, around how publishers are innovating and growing revenue. Despite all of these laws that that threaten public notice. So the result of this is Ravena's notice volume increased by 35% just from this one customer through the API integration with registered agents. So they were able to make placement so easy with the automation that they chose to send more of their notice volume to Ravena.
When you see hard numbers like that, and you see the volume go up, I think that's critical in our thinking today.
Yeah.
I go way back in this industry where my first, I think I'd mentioned this to you during one of our prep calls, my first national breakout gig, because I was nominated as a Newspaper Association digital pioneer, and a vendor called Ad1 asked me to go out and be a troubadour to help aggregate classifieds. and it was impossible. It was like herding cats, because back then the money we were raking in from classifieds, your jobs, homes, and cars was massive. And I saw people in the chat going, "Bo, those were the days. Those were the days." And back then, could you imagine a national database through
Yeah.
newspapers for jobs, homes, and we had the street cred, we had the
Mm-hmm.
brands, we had the traffic, and we had the
Yeah.
public trust back then. We still do in a lot of ways, I'm saying, and it just was mind-boggling. Today, I don't think public notice is just arguing in the legislature. It's providing the tools so we step up to the game, so we're ahead of the
Right.
curve. Does that make
Right.
sense? And it
Yes,
seems to me
definitely.
that is what you did in Ravena, which is showed that all we had to do is just apply the API. We just had to get the right tools in place, and the volume
Yeah.
increases. The customer's happy, the public's informed. God forbid you got some money on your top line as well.
Right, right, exactly. And throughout this, this process is really, you know, partnering with the publisher, partnering with the high volume customer to really understand what the requirements are, right? Again, Column is a product led company. And so that is our strength, is to develop these products and services that really allow us to, drive more value into this ecosystem. So I just want to keep reiterating that. And so what we did with Ravena, we're repeating time and time again with other high volume advertisers. So yeah, I'm
You
excited. I'm
you
excited
have
about
the
this launch.
resources to help one operation do that, correct?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
if someone joins you'll work on something just for that operation,
Yeah.
and of course, that benefits Column. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, because then you can replicate it into other markets as well.
Yes.
So in other words, it's like a petri dish. You can just
Yes.
stay ahead of it. All right, so let's get down to the end. Again, Enrique and Emmy are doing an amazing job in the chat room. I've been so busy, going full face and back face
I love it. This is
and then
great.
running slides. So if you continue any questions in the chat, please. Let me get down to the final question of the day. This has been a CEO level conversation. Most, if the registrants are C-suite executives, that's the E&P's core audience. So we always say we define our audience as someone who has to publish news, has to find an audience for that news, has to monetize that news.
Hmm.
That could be a small operation, that could be a Fortune 500 company. We talk to that decision maker. You got him in this room. We're going to be publicizing the recording of this, over the next few weeks. What advice, CEO to CEO, top line to top line, would you give to a newspaper publisher today? And don't sell your company. Just,
Yeah.
you've been in this game, you've been working it from the street up. What advice
Yeah.
would you give, the big ahas, the takeaways in today's public notice ecosystem?
Yeah. My main advice is, please don't try to navigate these shifts alone, right? You have tools, you have partners, you have other publishers, that you can lean on. And really the beginning of this, conversation is like, public notice rules are changing. They're changing fast, whether they're rates, publication frequency, affidavit requirements, and operating nationwide really lets us see those changes as they happen and share what's working across markets. So when something hits your state, you're not sure how to stay compliant, give us a call. Right, just give us a call. World Media actually is a great example in Jersey. They faced new online posting requirements as a result of the bill that passed last year. We helped them adapt. They were able to stay compliant and retain their public notice revenue. So there's no need to navigate this alone. Is my advice.
All right, now we're going to bring this whole thing home a little early, but that's good. We just saw in the chat room someone saying, there's too many links flying through here. Everybody who registered for this webinar is going to get a link, hopefully later today, with a complete write-up of the content, a link to the recording so you can share it amongst your team or other decision makers, and more importantly, a link to each and every one of the case studies that we mentioned. We'll get them in there for you, and we'll send that out later today. If you're registered, you'll get it. Secondly, share this information if you can. I think don't you agree, Megan? Because
Yes, please.
this is a very critical part of our industry. And if I may pontificate for a second, there's strength in numbers on this one.
Yes.
Man,
Yes.
we're all in this together, and we got to work together in order to maintain that final check on power, which that's how I
Yes.
look at it, and
Yep.
B, maintain another critical revenue stream that helps find that sustainability formula. So
Yes.
let me bring this whole thing home by thanking Megan, the amazing team at Column. Also, Megan, thank you for your support for our mission at ENP to help,
Of
keep
course.
journalism going. B, keep in mind, public notice is only in a change now. It is not disappearing. If you want to stay in the game, you're going to have to be where the customers are, and you're going to have to be where the audience is.
Yeah.
We have to monetization can increase revenue as well, but it's going to be the early adapters, those that move forward, that are part of this. And the proven models we've shown you already exist. So feel free to review them, and we'll keep you up to date. Thank you, Megan, and your great team. Thank you, Enrique and Emmy in the chat room. Thank you, our audience, for participating. And keep it here at EMP. We'll keep you up to date on all the issues that are helping us find and continue to do our mission. Megan, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Mike. Take care.